The space station Kepler Crossing hung in the darkness like a massive wheel of light. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its ports every day. Today it hosted something unusual. 3 human warships had arrived and everyone was watching. Captain Jinho stood on the bridge of the UHS Indomitable and looked out at the station. His ship was old. The hull showed marks from many battles, burns from laser fire, dents from impacts, patches of new metal where repairs had been made. But the ship still worked. It had carried him through 15 years of service. Admiral Yuna walked up beside him. She was the commander of Earth's entire defense fleet, a woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had fought in more battles than most people could count. "They're waiting for us," Yuna said quietly. "The Valorians want to see what humanity brought to show them." Jinho nodded. "Then let's not disappoint them." The third member of their delegation was Tai Yang, a diplomatic officer who wore a crisp uniform. He looked nervous. This was his first major assignment. The future of Earth's relationship with the galaxy might depend on today. The docking procedure took 30 minutes. When they finally walked out of their ship and into the station, they found a greeting party waiting. 5 Valorian officers stood in perfect formation. Their uniforms were made of some kind of shimmering material that changed colors in the light. Everything about them screamed wealth and advanced technology. The leader stepped forward. He was tall with pale blue skin and forearms. His name was High Commander Doyen, and his smile did not reach his eyes. "Welcome to Kepler Crossing," Doyen said. His voice was smooth and polite, but something felt wrong about it. "We are honored that Earth has sent representatives to petition for council membership." Next to him stood Ambassador Nari, a female Valorian with silver markings on her face. She looked at the 3 humans like someone might look at insects. "Your ships have been assigned Docking Bay 7, Nari said. "We would like to conduct a tour, if you don't mind. Standard procedure for all applicants." Admiral Yuna's jaw tightened, but she nodded. "Of course. We have nothing to hide." The tour was painful. 20 Valorian officers walked through the Indomitable's corridors, and their reactions made Jinho's blood boil. They pointed at the thick metal walls and laughed. They touched the railgun ammunition feeds and shook their heads. They examined the armor plating and whispered to each other. "Your defensive system," one Valorian officer said loudly. "It appears to be solid metal. You don't use energy shields." Engineer Hana, who was giving the technical portion of the tour, kept her voice level. "Our armor has proven effective against all threats we've encountered." "How primitive," another officer muttered. Not quite quietly enough. When they reached the weapons bay, the mockery got worse. The Valorians gathered around a railgun mount, examining it like it was an ancient artifact. "Kinetic projectiles?" Ambassador Nari asked, her voice full of disbelief. "You fire pieces of metal at your enemies?" "Tungsten penetrators accelerated to significant fractions of light speed," Hana explained. "They're very effective." High Commander Doyen actually laughed. "My dear human, we stopped using solid projectiles 3,000 years ago. Our plasma lance batteries can strike targets from 10,000 kilometers away. Our quantum torpedoes phase through solid matter. And you're still throwing rocks?" Jinho felt his fists clench. Admiral Yuna put a gentle hand on his arm, a silent command to stay calm. The tour continued. The Valorians examined the chemical rocket systems that powered the ship's combat engines. They looked at the nuclear reactor that generated electricity. They studied the basic computer systems that controlled ship functions. Everything humanity had built with pride, the Valorians treated as junk. "Tell me," Ambassador Nari said as they returned to the docking bay, "do you still use gunpowder weapons on your planet? Perhaps you write on paper as well?" Taeyang tried to respond diplomatically. "We've adapted our technology to our needs and resources." "Earth's industrial capacity is clearly insufficient for modern warfare," Nari interrupted. "I think we've seen enough." The formal petition hearing happened 3 hours later in one of the station's grand chambers. The Galactic Council sat in a semicircle, representatives from 40 different civilizations. The Valorians dominated the center positions. Admiral Yuna made Earth's case. She spoke about humanity's expansion into space, about the colonies they'd established, about their trade networks and diplomatic achievements. She talked about Earth's commitment to peace and cooperation. The council listened politely. Then they voted. "The petition is denied," the council speaker announced. "Earth's technological development is deemed insufficient for council membership at this time. Furthermore, All human vessels are restricted to sectors 12 through 18. Any expansion beyond these borders will be considered a violation of council law. Jinho watched Admiral Yuna's face carefully. She showed no emotion, but he knew her well enough to see the anger burning behind her eyes. As they prepared to leave the station, Ambassador Nari approached them one final time. "I hope you understand," she said, not sounding like she hoped anything of the sort. "The Council has standards. Your warships look like they belong in a museum, metal boxes with simple weapons. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, when you've developed proper technology, you can apply again." Admiral Yuna met her gaze. "We'll remember this conversation." Back on the Indomitable, the crew was silent and angry. Everyone had heard about the humiliation. Everyone knew the Valorians had laughed at their ship. Jinho gathered his senior officers in the briefing room. Engineer Hana was there, along with Tactical Officer Jiho and Weapons Specialist Minho. "They scanned us," Hana said quietly. "During the entire tour, they were running deep sensor sweeps of all our systems. They weren't just mocking us. They were gathering military intelligence." "Why would they need that?" Minho asked. "They clearly think we're no threat." "Maybe," Jiho said slowly. "They want to make sure we stay that way." Admiral Yuna entered the room. Everyone stood up, but she waved them back to their seats. "I'm increasing our border patrols," she announced. "Triple the usual coverage. I want eyes on every approach to human space." "You think they'll try something?" Jinho asked. Yuna's expression was hard. "I think arrogant people do stupid things. And the Valorians are very, very arrogant. They see us as primitives with old ships and simple weapons. That makes us either irrelevant or easy prey." She pulled up a star map showing human space and the surrounding sectors. "History has a lesson," Yuna continued. "Empires that get too comfortable, that forget how to really fight, they get careless. They underestimate their enemies. The Valorians laughed at our armor and our railguns. They think we're weak," Jinho smiled grimly. "Let them think that." "Exactly," Yuna agreed. "Our ships may be old. Our weapons may be simple, but they work, and we know how to use them. If the Valorians decide to test us, they're going to learn something important." "What's that?" Hana asked. "That there's a difference between old and obsolete," Yuna said, "and they're about to find out which one we are." The Indomitable detached from Kepler Crossing and began the journey home. Behind them, the Valorian fleet watched them go. In the command center, High Commander Doyen reviewed the sensor data his ships had collected. "These humans are no threat," he told his officers. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. If they cause any problems, we'll sweep them aside like dust." He had no idea how wrong he was. 3 weeks passed after the rejection at Kepler Crossing. 3 weeks of careful watching and growing tension. Then the Valorian ships started coming. Commander Minji ran Outpost Vanguard, a small station on the edge of human space. It wasn't much to look at, just a communications hub with basic sensors and a small garrison, but it gave humanity eyes on the border. The first Valorian scout ship appeared on a Tuesday. It didn't attack. It just flew through human space slowly, its sensors active and scanning everything. Minji sent warnings, but the ship ignored them. After 6 hours, it left. 2 days later, 3 more Valorian ships came. They flew past a human mining colony, scanned it completely, and broadcasted a message in perfect English. "This system is now under Valorian protection. You are guests in our territory." The messages started coming in from all along the border. Valorian ships everywhere. They disrupted trade routes by parking in shipping lanes. They scanned colonies without permission. They acted like human space belonged to them. Minji reported everything to Earth Command. She sent detailed logs of each violation, each scan, each threatening message. After 5 days of this, she got her answer. "Reinforcements are coming," Admiral Yuna's message said. "Hold your position." The reinforcements arrived 3 days later. Captain Jinho's battle group consisted of 5 heavy cruisers and 12 destroyers, 17 warships total. They spread out along the border, establishing patrol routes and defensive positions. Jinho met with Minji via video link. She looked tired. Running the outpost while dealing with constant Valorian harassment had worn her down. "They're testing us," she said, "seeing how far they can push before we push back." "We're pushing back now," Jinho replied. "If any Valorian ship crosses the border, warn them once. If they ignore the warning, target them with weapons. Don't fire unless they fire first, but make it clear we're serious." The Valorian incursion slowed for a few days. Then the official message came. Ambassador Nari appeared on every communications channel in human space simultaneously. Her image filled screens on Earth, on colony worlds, on outposts and ships. The message was simple and insulting. The Valorian Empire hereby claims systems designated as New Jeju, Hope's End, and Trinity 7. These systems fall within our sphere of influence. All human inhabitants have 30 days to evacuate. Furthermore, humanity will accept protectorate status under the Empire. You will reduce your military forces to police levels and allow Valorian oversight of your expansion. These terms are non-negotiable. The message ended with Nari's cold smile. Your primitive warships are no match for the Empire's might. Accept these terms peacefully or learn this lesson through pain. On Earth, the United Government held an emergency session. They debated for 18 hours. Some wanted to negotiate, some wanted to find a diplomatic solution, but most agreed on one thing: humanity would not kneel. The response was delivered by Admiral Yuna herself. She stood in front of cameras wearing her full military uniform with all her medals. Her face was calm, but her eyes were steel. The Valorian Empire demands we surrender our homes and our freedom. They call our ships primitive and our forces inadequate. They believe we will bow to threats and intimidation. She paused. They are wrong. Humanity does not surrender. We do not accept slavery, and we do not fear bullies no matter how advanced their technology. To the Valorian Empire we say this: withdraw peacefully or we will defend what is ours. The broadcast reached every corner of known space. Other civilizations watched with interest. Some thought humanity was brave. Others thought they were foolish. No one had stood up to the Valorian Empire in 50 years. High Commander Doyun received authorization from the Valorian High Council 3 days later. The message was clear. Make an example of the humans. Show the galaxy what happens when primitives refuse the Empire's generosity. Doyun assembled the 7th Fleet, 30 warships, each one a masterpiece of Valorian engineering. Plasma lance batteries that could melt through solid metal from thousands of kilometers away. Quantum torpedoes that phase through normal matter. Energy shields that could absorb incredible amounts of damage. The fleet represented overwhelming force. The target was New Jeju, a human colony with 6 million people. Farms, factories, families. A world where people had built lives. Doyun chose it specifically because it was important. Destroying it would break human morale. Captain Jinho received the warning from Outpost Vanguard. 30 Valorian warships were moving toward New Jeju. His battle group had 17 ships, and they were humanity's only defense in the sector. He gathered his officers. Engineer Hana checked the status of every ship system. Tactical Officer Jiho analyzed every piece of intelligence they had on Valorian combat doctrine. Weapons Officer Minho prepared ammunition loads and targeting solutions. We're outnumbered almost 2 to 1, Jiho said. Their ships have better shields, longer-range weapons, and faster quantum drives. But, Jinho prompted. Jiho smiled slightly. But we have advantages they don't expect. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons. Plasma lasers, particle beams. They're much less effective against kinetic projectiles. Our railguns, Minho added. And our missiles. They hit with physical force, not energy. Hana brought up technical diagrams. Valorian ships have thin hulls. They rely entirely on shields for protection. If we get through those shields, they're vulnerable. Our ships have half a meter of armor plating. We can take hits they can't. Range is the key, Jiho continued. They'll try to stay far away and pound us with plasma lances. We need to get close, inside 5,000 kilometers, where our weapons are most effective. Jinho studied the tactical display. He knew what he was asking his people to do. They would have to charge through enemy fire, absorbing terrible damage just to reach effective combat range. Ships would be destroyed. People would die, but if they didn't fight, 6 million colonists would be at the mercy of an empire that had already shown nothing but contempt for humanity. We use defensive formation Gamma 7, Jinho decided. It'll look scattered and disorganized to their sensors. They'll think we're panicking, but it gives each ship room to maneuver and reduces their ability to concentrate fire. The human fleet moved into position around New Jeju. They set up in what looked like a random pattern. No clear formation, no obvious strategy. To Valorian sensors, it looked like amateurs pretending to be soldiers. The Valorian 7th Fleet arrived at the outer marker buoys of the New Jeju system. High Commander Doyun sat in his command chair, supremely confident. 30 advanced warships against 17 primitive metal boxes. This would be over quickly. He opened a channel to the human fleet. This is High Commander Doyen of the Valorian 7th Fleet. You have 1 hour to surrender your vessels and evacuate the colony. This is your only warning. Comply or be destroyed. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Jinho listened to the message. His crew waited for his response. He thought about Admiral Yuna's words, about how arrogant empires make mistakes, about how old weapons and skilled hands could still win fights. He looked at his tactical officer. Jiho, what's our status? All ships ready, sir. Weapons loaded. Armor integrity at 100%. Crew ready for combat. Jinho nodded. He didn't respond to Doyen's message. He just waited. The hour passed slowly. Doyen watched the clock count down. The humans weren't responding. They weren't running. They weren't surrendering. They were just sitting there in their old ships waiting. Strange, Doyen muttered. What are they planning? His tactical officer shrugged. Maybe they're frozen with fear? Their technology is so primitive they might not even understand what's about to happen. When the hour ended, Doyen made his decision. All ships advance to firing range. Prepare plasma lance batteries. Target the human vessels. Let's show them the price of defiance. The Valorian fleet moved forward in their standard battle formation. A wide arc designed to maximize firepower while overlapping shields protected each ship. It was a formation they'd used in dozens of battles. Against pirates. Against rebels. Against anyone who challenged the Empire's authority. But they'd never fought humans before. As the distance closed to maximum plasma lance range, Doyen gave the order. Open fire. 30 Valorian warships lit up the darkness with streams of superheated plasma. The brilliant beams crossed the empty space between the fleets and slammed into human ships. On the Indomitable's bridge, alarms screamed. The hull temperature spiked. Armor plating on the forward sections melted and boiled away. But underneath the outer layer was more armor, and underneath that was even more. Damage report, Jinho called out. Hana checked her screens. Armor at 84%. Outer layers ablating as designed. Structure integrity maintained. The humans weren't dying. Their ships were getting hurt, but they weren't exploding. They weren't breaking apart. They were still there, still fighting. Jinho smiled. All ships full burn. Close to engagement range. Let's show them what obsolete really means. The human ships accelerated forward like bullets. Their chemical rockets and nuclear pulse drives burned at maximum power. The force pushed crews back into their seats. Internal gravity compensators worked overtime to keep people conscious. High Commander Doyen watched in confusion as the human fleet charged directly toward his guns. No sane commander would do this. Energy shields made modern space combat a long-range affair. Ships circled each other at thousands of kilometers, trading plasma fire until one side's shields failed. But the humans had no shields. They were just charging forward through his weapons fire. Increase firing rate, Doyen ordered. Concentrate on the lead ships. The Valorian plasma lances fired faster. More beams crossed the darkness. More superheated energy slammed into human armor. The Indomitable's outer hull was glowing red now. Metal was melting and streaming away. 2 other human cruisers showed similar damage. Armor at 70%, Engineer Hana reported. Her voice was steady despite the ship shaking around them. Forward sections critical. Rerouting cooling systems. Hold together, Jinho muttered, gripping his command chair. Just a little longer. Tactical Officer Jiho counted down the range. 40,000 kilometers. 35,000. 30,000. On the Valorian flagship, a junior officer looked worried. Commander, they're not stopping. They're going to reach optimal firing range for kinetic weapons. Doyen waved dismissively. So what? Kinetic weapons are useless against modern shields. Let them waste their ammunition. Continue firing. The distance kept shrinking. The human ships were damaged but still coming. Their armor was ablating away layer by layer, but the layers were deep. Human engineering had spent centuries learning how to build things that could take punishment. 25,000 kilometers. 20,000. All ships. Jinho spoke clearly over the fleet channel. Prepare to fire. Full broadside on my mark. Every human warship bristled with weapons. Railguns mounted along their hulls. Coil gun batteries and rotating turrets. Missile pods loaded with hundreds of kinetic kill vehicles. All of them had been sitting silent, waiting for this moment. 15,000 kilometers. The Valorians were still firing. Still confident, still certain their shields would protect them. 10,000 kilometers, mark, Jinho shouted. The human fleet opened fire. Thousands of projectiles erupted from 17 warships simultaneously. Tungsten penetrator rods, each one weighing several tons and moving at incredible speeds. Missiles with conventional explosive warheads. Smaller kinetic impactors designed to overwhelm point defense systems. The space between the two fleets filled with deadly metal. The Valorian energy shields lit up as the projectiles hit. But these shields were designed for a different kind of warfare. They were calibrated to dissipate energy, to spread heat and force across their entire surface. Against plasma lances and lasers, they were nearly perfect. Against solid matter traveling at relativistic speeds, they were much less effective. The tungsten rods didn't care about energy dissipation. They carried momentum, raw kinetic force that couldn't be redirected or absorbed. They hit the shields and punched through. Not all of them. The shields still stopped many. But enough got through. High Commander Doyen watched in horror as 3 of his cruisers took direct hits. The penetrators tore through their thin hulls like paper. Internal explosions blossomed as fuel tanks and weapon systems ruptured. One ship lost power completely and went dark. Another began venting atmosphere. Impossible, Doyen shouted. How are they penetrating our shields? His science officer was frantically checking sensor data. Commander, their weapons are using kinetic force, not energy. Our shield harmonics can't effectively disperse solid mass at these velocities. Before Doyen could respond, the second wave hit. Human nuclear missiles detonated across the Valorian formation. Not close enough to physically damage ships, but close enough for the electromagnetic pulses to wash over them. Valorian sensors designed for precision and sensitivity suddenly went half-blind. Shield generators flickered as power systems tried to compensate for the interference. Sensors degraded by 40%. A Valorian officer reported. Shield strength fluctuating. Commander Minji's destroyer group chose that moment to execute their flanking maneuver. 5 small, fast human ships swept around the Valorian line at full burn. They'd been positioned in the disorganized formation specifically for this purpose. The destroyers opened fire on the Valorian rear ships. Railgun rounds slammed into shields that were already weakened and fluctuating from the nuclear pulses. 2 more Valorian vessels took critical damage. Jiho was calling out targets and coordinating fire. Concentrate on their cruiser. Designation V7. Multiple ships synchronized firing. 4 human cruisers turned their weapons on 1 Valorian ship. Dozens of railgun rounds hit its shields within seconds. The shield collapsed completely and the next volley tore the ship apart. The Valorian 7th Fleet was in chaos. They'd expected an easy victory, a demonstration of superior technology. Instead, they were taking casualties from an enemy they'd mocked as primitive. Doyen tried to regain control. All ships increase shield power. Adjust harmonics for kinetic defense. Return fire. But his ships were spread out in their standard formation, designed for long-range shield warfare. The formation worked when everyone stayed at distance. Now that the humans were close, the Valorians couldn't concentrate their fire effectively without hitting each other. The human ships, designed for brutal close combat, were in their element. They wove between Valorian vessels firing at point-blank range. Their heavy armor absorbed hits that would have destroyed shield-dependent ships. One human destroyer, already heavily damaged, made a suicide run at a Valorian battlecruiser. The destroyer's captain aimed his dying ship directly at the larger vessel's bridge. The impact destroyed both ships, but it opened a gap in the Valorian formation. Jinho saw the opportunity. All ships pushed through that gap, split their formation. The human fleet surged forward. The Valorians tried to close the gap, but human weapons fire kept them back. Within minutes, the Valorian fleet was divided into 2 groups that couldn't support each other effectively. We need to withdraw, a Valorian officer pleaded with Doyen. We've lost 8 ships. Another 6 are critically damaged. Doyen's face was pale. His career had been built on easy victories. He'd fought pirates and rebels who either ran away or died quickly. He'd never faced an enemy this determined, this vicious, this willing to take casualties to achieve victory. Fall back, he ordered quietly. All ships retreat to safe distance. But the humans had anticipated this. Tactical Officer Jiho had predicted the Valorians would try to run. Human ships were already positioned to block the most direct escape routes. They're trying to retreat, Jiho reported. Recommend we pursue. Jinho considered for a moment. His ships were damaged. Several were in bad shape. But the Valorians were broken. If he let them escape now, they'd regroup and come back stronger. Pursuit course, he ordered. Don't let them reform. Keep the pressure on. The battle became a running fight. Valorian ships tried to escape while human vessels chased them down. Railgun fire continued to pound Valorian shields. More ships fell behind, too damaged to maintain speed. The humans didn't finish them off. They just kept pushing the fleet away from New Jeju. After 2 hours, Doyun's flagship was finally able to establish enough distance to safely engage quantum drives. The surviving Valorian ships jumped away, leaving their most damaged vessels behind. The battlefield was a mess. 5 destroyed Valorian ships tumbled through space, leaking atmosphere and debris. 8 more were disabled, their crews frantically trying to restore emergency power. The humans had captured the disabled ships and were already sending boarding teams. On the human side, the damage was severe but different. Every ship had armor damage. The Indomitable's forward sections were melted slag. 2 destroyers were completely destroyed, their crews lost. But 15 human ships still functioned. Battered, scarred, but operational. Jinho stood on his damaged bridge and looked at the tactical display. They'd won. Against superior numbers and technology, they'd won. Engineer Hana was already coordinating damage control. We need major repairs, Captain, but we can make it back to port under our own power. Casualties? Jinho asked quietly. 73 dead across the fleet, Jiho reported. 241 wounded. Jinho closed his eyes for a moment. Every death hurt. But 6 million colonists were safe because those 73 people had done their duty. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Captain Jinho to all human vessels. You fought bravely today. You showed the galaxy that old ships with skilled crews can defeat any enemy. The Valorians called us obsolete. But obsolete weapons that still kill are just called weapons. Remember that. And remember those we lost today. They died defending our homes and our freedom. Down on New Jeju, 6 million people looked up at the sky where the battle had happened. They couldn't see it with their eyes, but their sensors had tracked everything. They knew how close they'd come to destruction, and they knew who had saved them. In orbit, Commander Minji was organizing salvage operations. The disabled Valorian ships would provide valuable intelligence, and the wreckage would be studied carefully. News of the battle spread through both civilizations like fire. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. Humanity had stood up to the mighty Valorian Empire and won. On the Valorian homeworld, there was shock and anger. How could primitives with outdated technology defeat their superior fleet? The Valorian High Council met in emergency session. High Commander Doyun was brought before them to explain his failure. He stood in the center of the Grand Chamber while 40 council members stared down at him. You had 30 ships against 17, Council Leader Hanuel said coldly. You had superior technology, superior shields, superior weapons, and yet you lost. Explain. Doyun's voice was steady despite his shame. The humans fight differently than any enemy we've faced in the last century. Their entire military doctrine is designed for close-range combat. They built their ships to absorb damage and strike back at short distances. Our shields are optimized for energy weapons. Their kinetic projectiles penetrated more effectively than we anticipated. Are you saying our technology is inferior? Another council member demanded. No, Doyun replied. I'm saying our technology is designed for a different kind of warfare. We've been fighting pirates and rebels who use weapons similar to ours. The humans use weapons we abandoned thousands of years ago, but they've refined those weapons to perfection. They're good at what they do. The council didn't want to hear this. They stripped Doyun of his command and assigned him to a research position. Then they made their decision. If 17 human ships could bloody the 7th Fleet, then overwhelming force was required. They committed the 3rd and 9th Fleets. 107 warships. The largest military operation the Valorian Empire had launched in 50 years. High Commander Hajun took overall command. Unlike Doyun, Hajun was a careful man. He'd fought in real wars during his youth, before the Empire became so dominant that resistance seemed pointless. He respected any enemy that could win a battle. Hajun brought in specialists. Science officer Yunji studied all the data from the first battle. Tactical experts analyzed human ship movements and weapon performance. Engineers examined the captured Valorian vessels to see exactly how human weapons had damaged them. The humans are brutal fighters, Yunji reported during a planning session. They accept terrible damage to their ships because their armor allows them to survive it. Then they close to point-blank range where their weapons are most effective. It's not sophisticated, but it works. Hajun nodded. So we don't let them close. We maintain maximum range. We use our superior sensors to target them from distances where their weapons can't effectively respond. We pound them with plasma fire until their armor fails completely. What about their nuclear missiles? A tactical officer asked. The electromagnetic pulses disrupt our systems. We adjust our shield frequencies and harden our electronics, Hajun replied. Yunji's team is already working on it. We won't be caught by the same tricks twice. On Earth, Admiral Yuna was also preparing. She knew the Valorians would return with everything they had. The question was whether humanity could survive it. She assembled Earth's Grand Fleet. Every combat-capable warship was called in. From defense stations around Earth, from patrol duties and other systems, from training missions and supply runs, 42 capital ships. The largest concentration of human military power ever brought together in one place. The target would be Titan Station, orbiting Saturn. The massive industrial complex built warships and produced weapons. If the Valorians destroyed it, Earth's ability to continue the war would be crippled. Admiral Yuna knew they would come there. It was too important to ignore. Captain Jinho was given command of the Vanguard battle group. His reputation after New Jeju made him the obvious choice. The Indomitable had been repaired, its armor replaced, its weapons reloaded. But the scars remained visible, kept deliberately as a reminder. The two fleets met in the space around Saturn. 107 Valorian warships against 42 human vessels. The numbers were brutal. Hajun positioned his fleet at extreme range, 50,000 kilometers, far beyond effective range for human railguns but perfect for Valorian plasma lances. Begin bombardment, Hajun ordered. Maintain this distance. Let their armor melt slowly. The Valorian fleet opened fire. Over 100 ships launching plasma beams simultaneously. The volume of fire was incredible. Human ships disappeared behind curtains of superheated energy. On the Indomitable's bridge, alarms screamed. The ship shook constantly. Armor was ablating away much faster than in the first battle. There were simply too many enemy ships firing. Armor at 70%, Engineer Hana called out. 65%. 60%. They're staying out of our range, Jiho reported. This is a new tactic. They learned from last time. Other human ships reported similar conditions. Everyone was taking heavy damage. 2 destroyers were destroyed in the first hour. 3 more were disabled and had to fall back. Admiral Yuna watched from her flagship. The Valorians were being smart this time. They were using their technological advantages properly. If this continued, the human fleet would be ground down to nothing without ever firing a shot. But Yuna had been watching carefully. The Valorian fleet was maintaining their position in a defensive sphere around Titan Station. They wanted to destroy the human fleet before approaching the station itself. Standard tactics, safe tactics, and that pattern created an opportunity. Captain Jinho, Yuna's voice came over the command channel. I need your battle group to make a charge. Full acceleration directly at the enemy center. Draw their fire. Jinho understood immediately. It was a suicide mission. His ships would be destroyed before they could close the range. But if they drew enough attention... Understood, Admiral. He replied. All ships prepare for full burn on my mark. Engineer Hana looked at him with wide eyes. Captain, our armor is already down to 55%. We can't survive a charge through that much fire. I know, Jinho said quietly. But someone has to do it. Make sure power is routed to forward shields and armor. We don't have shields, Hana reminded him. Then just armor. And Hana? It's been an honor serving with you. She swallowed hard and nodded. The honor is mine, Captain. Jinho opened the fleet-wide channel. This is Captain Jinho to all Vanguard ships. We've been given a mission. It's probably going to kill us, but it'll give the rest of the fleet a chance. Every one of you volunteered for military service knowing this day might come. Today we do our duty. For Earth, for humanity. For everyone we're protecting. All ships, emergency thrust. Full acceleration toward enemy center. 8 human cruisers and 4 destroyers lit their engines at maximum burn. They charged forward like spears thrown at a fortress. The Valorian fleet immediately concentrated fire on them. The plasma bombardment intensified tenfold. Jinho's ship was hit dozens of times per second. Armor melted away in rivers. Hull plating underneath began to glow red. Internal temperatures spiked despite cooling systems working at maximum. Armor at 40%. Hana screamed over the alarms. 35-30. 2 destroyers exploded. Another fell behind, its engines dead. But the remaining ships kept coming. And while the Valorians focused on Jinho's suicide charge, they stopped paying attention to the rest of the human fleet. Admiral Yuna gave her next order. All remaining ships flank speed. Vector 77 Alpha. Use Jinho's assault as cover and circle around their formation. 33 human warships suddenly changed course. They didn't charge forward. They went sideways, using every bit of thrust to circle around the edge of the Valorian sphere, while the enemy was distracted. Hajun realized the trap too late. They're flanking us. Redirect fire. But his ships were already committed. They couldn't split their fire effectively between Jinho's charge and Yuna's flanking maneuver. Hajun had to choose. He chose wrong. He kept most of his ships firing at Jinho's group, trying to destroy the immediate threat. Only about 30 Valorian ships turned to face Yuna's flanking force. Jinho's remaining ships were dying. The Indomitable's armor was down to 15%. Systems were failing across the ship. But they'd closed the range to 20,000 kilometers. Close enough. All ships, fire everything, Jinho ordered. The dying human ships launched their missiles and railgun rounds. Even damaged and nearly destroyed, they could still kill. Their weapons slammed into the Valorian center, destroying 5 more enemy ships. Then Jinho's cruiser took a direct hit to the bridge. The last thing he saw was a wall of flame before everything went dark. Admiral Yuna's flanking force hit the Valorian formation from an unexpected angle. 33 ships firing at close range into the Valorian flank. Ships that were designed for this kind of brutal point-blank combat. The next hour was carnage. Human ships rammed into Valorian formations. Railguns fired at ranges measured in kilometers instead of thousands. Nuclear missiles detonated so close that both sides took damage from the blasts. It was chaos. It was brutal. It was exactly the kind of fight humans excelled at. Commander Minji's ship was one of the vessels that survived. She watched her sensors in awe as human ships, many of them critically damaged, continued fighting. One cruiser, its entire bow blown away, used its remaining engines to ram a Valorian battlecruiser. Both ships were destroyed, but the sacrifice let 3 human destroyers get through the gap. The Valorian Empire was shaken to its core. They had sent 107 warships, the pride of their military, against a supposedly primitive enemy. Nearly 60 ships had been destroyed or captured. It was the worst military defeat the Empire had suffered in over a century. In the Grand Council chambers on the Valorian homeworld, the leadership met in crisis. High Commander Hajun, rescued from his damaged flagship, stood before them once again. Unlike Doyen before him, Hajun was not being punished. He had fought well, but he had also lost. Explain how this happened, Council Leader Hanuel demanded. We gave you overwhelming force, superior technology, every advantage, and you still lost. Hajun's voice was tired but honest. Because we don't know how to fight anymore. Not really. The humans do. They've spent centuries fighting each other. Their entire civilization grew through conflict. They understand war in a way we've forgotten. Science Officer Yunji stepped forward. She had prepared a detailed report. The humans optimized for survival and close combat. While we developed energy weapons and shields, they perfected armor and kinetic weapons. While we fight at long range to minimize risk, they accept terrible casualties to get close enough to use their strengths. Our technology is more advanced, but their doctrine is more effective. Are you saying we should surrender? A council member asked angrily. No, Hajun replied. I'm saying we should negotiate. The humans have proven they can hurt us badly. They can't win a total war against the full might of the Empire, but they can make victory so costly that it's not worth the price. Other civilizations are watching. If we continue to lose ships, our reputation will be destroyed. That will be worse than admitting we underestimated an enemy. The council debated for hours. Some wanted to continue the war. Others wanted to find a diplomatic solution. In the end, pragmatism won. The Valorian Empire would offer terms. Ambassador Nari, who had started this crisis with her contempt, was chosen to deliver the message. It was fitting. She had mocked the humans. Now she would ask for peace. The meeting was held at a neutral space station. Admiral Yuna arrived with a small escort. Captain Jinho, recovered from his injuries, accompanied her. His face showed new scars and he walked with a slight limp. Battle wounds that he wore with quiet pride. Nari looked different. Her arrogance was gone. She looked tired and older. When she saw Jinho's scars, she lowered her eyes. Admiral Yuna, Captain Jinho. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Nari began formally. The Valorian Empire wishes to propose peace terms. We're listening, Yuna replied neutrally. Nari presented the terms. Complete withdrawal from human space. Recognition of Earth's sovereignty over all claimed systems. A non-aggression pact lasting 50 years. Trade agreements on equal terms. And compensation for human losses during the conflict. Yuna reviewed the document carefully. It was everything Earth had originally asked for before the war started. No, it was more. The Valorians were offering respect this time. Why should we accept? Yuna asked. Your empire is vast. You have resources we can't match. But you've learned that taking our territory will cost you dearly. If we press our advantage, raid your supply lines, make you pay for every system you hold, we could bleed your empire slowly. Nari nodded slowly. You could, and you would eventually lose. Our resources are greater, our technology more advanced. Given enough time, we could overwhelm you. But the cost would be enormous. We would lose hundreds more ships, thousands of lives, and other civilizations would see us as weak for struggling against you. The political cost might destroy the Empire's authority more effectively than any military defeat. It was honest, more honest than Nari had been at their first meeting. We underestimated you, Nari continued quietly. I underestimated you. I saw old ships and simple weapons and assumed you were weak. I didn't understand that experience matters more than novelty. That knowing how to use your tools is more important than having the most advanced tools. Your ships may be older, your weapons may be simpler, but you know how to fight. And we've forgotten. Captain Jinho spoke for the first time. At Kepler Crossing, you called our ships obsolete. You laughed at our armor and our railguns. You said we belonged in a museum. Nari met his eyes. I was wrong, and my arrogance cost thousands of lives on both sides. I apologize. The room was quiet. An apology from a Valorian ambassador was rare. An apology to a species they'd considered primitive was unheard of. Admiral Yuna made her decision. We'll accept the terms, but with conditions. First, all prisoners are exchanged. Second, the captured Valorian ships are returned, but we keep the data we've collected from studying them. Third, Earth gets full membership in the Galactic Council, not as a subordinate member, but as an equal. Agreed, Nari said immediately. The Council has already approved Earth's membership, this time with genuine respect rather than contempt. They signed the treaty aboard a human warship, specifically aboard a repaired and refitted UHS Indomitable, the same ship the Valorians had mocked months earlier. The symbolism was deliberate. News of the peace treaty spread quickly. Earth celebrated not just the victory but the survival. They had faced an empire that controlled most of known space and fought them to a standstill. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. The Galactic Council held a formal ceremony to welcome Earth as a member. This time, when human ships docked at Kepler Crossing, the reception was completely different. Alien species came to examine the scarred warships with admiration instead of mockery. A group of young Valorian naval officers approached Captain Jinho during the ceremony. Their leader, a lieutenant named Bora, spoke hesitantly. Captain, we studied the Battle of Titan Station at the Academy. Your charge through the Valorian Center. It was incredible, suicidal but incredible. We wanted to ask, how did you maintain morale? How did you convince your crews to fly into certain death? Jinho considered the question. I didn't convince them. They volunteered. Every person on those ships knew what military service meant. That sometimes you have to risk everything to protect what matters. Our ships were old. Our weapons were simple. But our people understood why they were fighting. That made all the difference. An unexpected friendship developed between Jinho and former High Commander Hajun. Both were warriors who understood the cost of battle. They met privately during the celebrations. Your tactics were brilliant, Hajun admitted. Using your vanguard as a sacrifice to enable the flanking maneuver. Cold but brilliant. It wasn't supposed to be a sacrifice, Jinho replied. I hoped more of my people would survive. But they knew the risks. They did their duty. That's what we've lost, Hajun said quietly. The Valorian military became comfortable. We fought small wars against weak enemies. We forgot that real war is brutal and costly. Your people remembered. That's why you won. They talked for hours, sharing stories of battles, discussing tactics, finding common ground as soldiers who had fought each other and survived. Earth began constructing a new generation of warships. They incorporated some Valorian technology, better sensors for long-range detection, more efficient engines for travel between systems, improved communications equipment, but the core design remained the same. Heavy armor plating, kinetic weapons, built for close-range combat. Human engineers had learned that their old methods worked. There was no reason to abandon them completely. Engineer Hana oversaw the construction of the new flagship. She stood in the orbital shipyard, watching robotic systems weld armor plates into place. A young engineer named Salmon worked beside her. "Why don't we use energy shields like the Valorians?" Salmon asked. "They seem more efficient." Hana touched the thick armor plate. "Because armor doesn't fail. It doesn't have power requirements. It doesn't have harmonics that can be exploited. It just sits there and takes hits until it can't anymore. Simple, reliable, proven, that's the human way." "What about plasma weapons? Shouldn't we update our railguns?" "Plasma weapons are excellent," Hana agreed. "But railguns never run out of ammunition as long as you have metal. They don't need complex power systems, and they punch through shields designed to stop energy weapons. Why would we abandon something that works so well?" The new flagship was christened UHS Remembrance. Its hull bore the names of every human ship lost in the war, every person who died defending Earth's freedom. The names were etched into the armor itself, so they would sail with the ship forever. Admiral Yuna gave the dedication speech at the launching ceremony. Thousands attended. Human civilians, allied aliens, even Valorian observers. "This ship represents our philosophy," Yuna said, her voice carrying across the shipyard. "We don't chase the newest technology. We don't abandon methods that work. We learn, we adapt. We perfect what we have. Our ships may never be as advanced as Valorian vessels or as fast as other species' craft. But they will always be reliable. They will always be tough, and they will always be crewed by people who understand their duty." She paused, looking at the massive warship behind her. "The Valorian Empire called our ships obsolete. They looked at our armor and laughed. They saw our kinetic weapons and mocked us, and they learned through pain and loss that old does not mean useless, that simple does not mean weak. That technology without skill, without doctrine, without the will to use it, is meaningless."